Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse. So, Chris, we wrapped 65, and that means this is it. This is real. It's 66. We're only 4 episodes away from the big 7-0. Again, whatever that milestone means, I don't even know
what anniversary that is.
Yeah. Why I'm obsessed with that, I have no clue, but that'll be fun. We'll have to do something special on the 70th, like I said. But yeah, episode 65 is behind us. We talked a lot about matchups, unlikely partners that were thrown together in television and film. And you know what? I think we should probably just go into the scoreboard from last episode so that we can do a quick recap. And the audience that may not have listened to last episode can at least hear some of the stuff that we said. Those
good.
of you that did listen to it, you're old like us. You already forgot half of that crap. Right. You don't even know what happened in that last episode. If anybody were to say to you, oh, you listened to the Nice Pull podcast, what did they talk about? You'd be like, I don't know, stuff.
But that's okay, because people ask me, well, what's the Nice Pull podcast all about? And I go, I don't know, stuff. So very appropriate. I'm down with those. Those are our people, Jeff. Those are our people.
Even when I do the elevator pitch, you know, the quick synopsis when someone asks me what it's about, and I get done with my little synopsis, they're still like, huh? Yeah, we're just a couple of Gen X guys that grew up in Southern California, and we talk about pop culture stuff. And they're like, huh? Most of them are thinking, why? What? Why? But for those of us that lived through it and those of us that experienced it, there's just such a huge endorphin. No, excuse me, dopamine, right? Is it both?
Right.
Is it endorphins and
it
dopamine?
It depends on your physiology, I guess, or your drug
One thing
habits.
I know it can't be is cortisol, because if there's anything the internet has taught me lately in my Instagram feed or Facebook feed, cortisol, Chris, it builds up, and it's very bad, Chris. There's all kinds of powders you can now take to get to lower that cortisol level, right? Something we never, ever worried about 15 minutes ago. Now everyone has to worry about cortisol. Okay.
As long as it's not tryptophan, right? Because that's the stuff from turkey that makes you sleepy.
Yeah.
So if we stay away from providing cortisol and tryptophan, we have done our job.
Oh, the benefits, you won't even believe it when you just bring those cortisol levels down.
Excellent.
And God forbid you have low T. You don't want low T, not at our age, Chris. But it's a bad thing.
But they never talk about having high T, because maybe that's confusing and they think that's like that hoity-toity thing. It's just like, how's your T? You know what I mean? It's like, it's low. But he never said, like, you need your T to be high. It's just like, it's like being like, you know, underwhelmed versus overwhelmed. No one ever just says, no, I'm whelmed, which means you're good. Right?
Yeah.
You're kind of like, it's one of those two. There can't be three. But whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, now I'm.
No, that's
this is what the podcast is about. Right.
Exactly. High T is basically code for 18 to 28. I think that's the range where you have high T. And then beyond that, it's some version of low to lower to shit. Where's my T? I don't know what happens after that.
Indiana Jones couldn't find my T, basically, I think is the problem, right? I think.
Okay. Well, so. The score. Let's take a quick look at the last episode, which would be episode 65. Again, we were talking about team-ups, famous team-ups, right? Where you would have unlikely people thrown together to head up this little TV show or movie as the star and co-star. Let's jump right in. And by the way, again, as always, anyone that wants to just dive into that score from the last episode. These are all scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and I have no control over it. It does what it
No
wants to
control.
do. Nope. Just go to nicepollpod.com, go to the very top there, click on Scoreboard, and you can have a blast there, man. Drink some coffee and look at that. Then do your
Knock
crossword
yourself out.
puzzle, read a couple articles in the ARP magazine, and then go to Denny's and get a 15%
Shit.
discount on a Grand Slam.
Hold
Dude,
that
that's a
thought.
day.
Hold that thought.
That's a pretty good half of your Sunday right there. So,
Or it could be
uh,
2/3 if you time it correctly, right? So you breakfast all day.
Chris, as with all of these episodes, AI will oftentimes hear us say something that we've already mentioned in a previous episode, but maybe we said something new about it, right? So this would be considered the nobody got points for it, but both you and I kind of talked about it, even though we've mentioned it before. One of them
Mhm.
would be Starsky and Hutch and the A Team. We did make some mention of those shows at least a couple times in the past. This
At
time around,
least.
we were talking about their cars and how the car from Starsky and Hutch was less than low profile for guys that are undercover cops, and the van that
So
Mr. T drove around was not low profile, or the Corvette that
uh,
Dirk Benedict drove around. We
mhm,
talked about Miami Vice. We have brought that up before, but of course, nothing's more '80s than that. And we talked about Crockett and Tubbs. Poor Tubbs.
Tubbs.
His career did not launch, but Crockett's went off the hook. You talked about the fact that these guys were driving around, again, very flashy cars, even
Mhm,
though they're supposed to be undercover drug dealers. Exactly, huge. But let's get into the ones that we got scores on, right? So,
mhm.
Cracker Jacks. I noticed when we talked about Cracker Jacks, AI was willing to split the difference between you and I. You're the one that brought it up and talked about how it was a cultural phenomenon. It still is. It's even been brought into our vernacular. Oh, that's a Cracker Jack operation,
Mhm.
usually meaning low budget and on the cheap,
Right.
right?
Right.
I brought up the fact that the toys have slowly devolved over time. They started out as metal and ended up as "fuck you." um, then we talked about Magic Eight Ball.
Mhm.
This was something that I was obsessed with breaking open to see how the hell it worked in there. And what a shock, Chris! Purple water and a little piece
Floaty.
of plastic. Yeah, like I really needed to break that thing open.
Right.
Mood rings. I kind of took it apart and talked about the little thermal
Mhm.
sensitive material that was on the back of the mood ring and made some smart ass jokes that AI liked. Then we talked about Stretch Armstrong, and again, let's cut it open. Let's see what's inside there, right? That cornstarch or whatever that substance was. I don't know,
Right.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take a essentially useless toy and make it completely useless. Because
Yeah,
once you cut it
yeah,
open, there was no going back. Right. It was just
yeah,
like, well, might as well
yeah.
throw that thing in it's trash day. So let's put that outside. Yep.
Well, to your point, I stretched it as far as I can stretch it. Okay, I guess I'm done with that toy. I don't even know what do you do after that? And then we talked about Remington Steel. Now that was, I think, one of the first times we mentioned Remington Steel. I was talking about
I think.
the
Yeah.
the fact that it was typically sexist, right? Where she
Hmm.
had to hire a guy as the pretend
It's
head
the
of the
face.
agency because
Right.
nobody would take a woman seriously, which is kind of sad. And then I did get a shit ton of points, Chris, for not only bringing up the show Riptide, but also
Mhm.
knowing that their helicopter was called the Screaming Mimi on that show. So that was pretty good. Now let's
God,
go to
that is
Chris,
a
you
deep
guys.
hole.
Chris brought up the Cagney and Lacey, which I don't know why I said the Cagney and Lacey, which we haven't brought up before, I don't think. And
No.
yeah. And Chris, you made some very funny remarks, especially the one where you didn't know which one was Cagney or Lacey. And to this day,
Um,
do we know which one was Cagney and
no,
which one was
I
Lacey?
don't.
No. You brought up one that blew my mind, by the way. Speaking of Cracker Jacks, whatever, was
Mhm.
the fortune telling fish. For those of you
Mhm.
that don't remember, it was a little ceramic red, not ceramic, excuse me, cellophane. It was a
Cellophane.
little piece of cellophane. It was
Mhm.
cut in the shape of a fish. It was only about, an inch long or 2 inches long. And you would stick it in the palm of your hand and it would curl up. And based on how it curled up, it would tell your fortune, right, Chris?
Or yeah, or you're supposed to, like, ask a question and
Yeah,
you'd sandbag somebody and say, like, "Are you in love?" And they'd go, like, it'll
right.
curl up, and
That's
you're like,
right.
"Ah, who do you" I mean, something ridiculous.
Take it to the
But
fish.
yeah,
Let's
the
see what
fish,
happens.
it was just about as effective as the magic 8 Ball, which had basically what 4 answers to, possible questions. It may be so, or something like that. But yes, that was
My
that
favorite
was a
was
prize. A prize, Jeff.
Outlook. Outlook not so good, Jeff. Outlook not so good. That was usually what I got. I always got the Charlie Brown answer. Do you think that there's a possibility that she likes me? Ask again later, and then I'll give you an Outlook not so good.
And
How's
then
that sound?
eventually with the launch of Windows and Bill Gates, Outlook not so good just became sort of part of our culture, right? Because it was
They sure
there
did.
sorry. Yeah, there you
Yeah. You brought up moonlighting, which we hadn't really touched on,
go.
and the dynamic again between Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. And your whole point was he's the one that everyone identified with. He's the one that everybody wanted to be,
Mhm.
not really her, right?
Right, right.
And you had a few examples of that, right? Where we identified with the guy that was in the show, but not
Breaks the
necessarily the
rules.
woman, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, Remington Steele being another situation like that,
Right.
actually. Cheers. You brought up the fact that everybody wanted to be Sam, and everybody thought that Diane was just a total, you know what,
Mhm.
and very, very typical of shows back then. And then you also, again, like I said, talked about Cracker Jacks and how it just kind of fit into our vernacular and the culture, all that stuff. So, Chris, at the end of the day, let's go ahead and take a look at the scores. Oh my gosh, look at that. That is a close race. And look, before you get upset, and I know this is going to ruin your entire day, again, for everyone at home, Chris is a competitor.
Oh, I'm a sore loser.
He plays to win. First of all, I won by 40,000 points, which is nothing. I had 443,000. Chris had 403,000. Judged by AI, we have to go with what it says. Chris, I'm still trailing you by many games on the war
Mhm.
zone here, but I caught up by one. So good going, Jeff.
Congratulations, Jeff.
That's very big of you.
I'm
Thank you.
very happy for you.
Well, Chris, let's get past this bad news and move into something kind of fun. While we have
Okay.
the liquor cabinet open, let's talk about the celebrity that you and I were able to talk to for a few
Okay.
minutes. Now, Chris, we of course remember the show Chips, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and Chris, just again, nutshell it for me, right? If you're an ad and TV guy, just in a few sentences, what the hell is the show Chips?
California Highway Patrol motorcycle officers John Baker and Frank Poncherello cruise the highways and byways of Los Angeles in search of crime and traffic incidents and hot chicks driving Corvettes. Something like
Oh
that.
man,
I don't
I
okay?
it was so good until you got to the traffic incidents, because we know in real life what a CHP officer is mostly doing is just writing a bunch of shitty tickets for a bunch of
Okay,
pissed
okay.
off
All
people
right.
on the
Sure.
morning commute. But no, you nailed it, and it's amazing how much trouble Ponch and John were able to discover just in their roles as CHP officers, right? But
Mhm.
that show was huge. We know that, and the theme song to it was another one of those situations where television theme songs kind of blew up and even showed up. I don't know if it charted on the radio charts, but it was played a lot, right?
'Cause
Yeah,
it was in that milieu of, like, SWAT and, like, Starsky and Hutch, it had that sort of weird, like, "wee," kind of whining synth. I don't wanna say synth pop, but, like,
yeah.
sort of
No, yeah.
synthesizer and maybe some horns, and it goes, "ee, nee, nee, nee," and it was really, like, and I think really the whole they just, like, went fast. Maybe that was supposed to be
Mhm.
the motorcycles, but they really
Right,
had no melody of any kind. It was just
right.
like, let's just play some notes really fast, and then we'll create a theme, and yeah, so and Chips, very recognizable. I'll be honest with you, I mean, both of us growing up in Southern California, right, born and raised and growing up in Southern California, prior to that show coming out, I never ever heard the reference of a chip. It was always just a CHP. It's just like,
Yeah,
are we that lazy? That I mean, which one is like, so that part, but yeah,
yeah.
it had the two good looking, mismatched sort of leads and out there doing their thing on their motorcycles in sunny Southern California and probably getting way too involved in the lives of people who they randomly stuff. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's
And
like, aren't they just supposed to like write their ticket or fill out their report and move on?
right.
But instead,
Right.
they're out there. They're solving. I think they may have like solved crimes, and I
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think that was their job per
Right.
se. The job that they had. So I do know that they do get more felony convictions, or at the time than they used to, than any other agency in California. But that was because of drunk driving. So that was kind of like a little loophole because those are, you know, or felony arrest, not necessarily convictions. But yeah, and that was Chips. So who do we? Oh, so Chips. So now this is intriguing. Hopefully
Well
we've drawn
yeah,
everybody in.
well, and by the way, before we reveal our mystery guest, and it can only be one of 2 people, so, roll the dice.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting the evolution of cop shows, right? Because if you go back to Dragnet, it's very serious.
Oh
I mean,
God, yeah.
it's like overly dramatic. It was 9:15 on a Saturday
Jack
morning.
Webb monologues were amazing. Yeah, just
And
like.
and and he would just do that rapid fire when you see a
Mhm.
kid retching in the street from over ODing on barbiturates. "You don't understand, ma'am. You don't think to yourself, 'What's up with America?' You think, 'What's up with the world?'" He would just go off on these, like,
I'm
crazy.
right. I'm the
Yeah,
cops. I'm the fuzz. I'm John Law. It'd be like, "What?"
yeah. John Law. Yeah.
That was a real
And then
line. Yeah.
you had slightly cooler cops, but still very straight-laced, which was Martin Milner, right, and Kent McCord
Right.
as one Adam 12,
Reed
right?
and
And I
McCoy.
could
Was I think?
Can you
But
do you
yeah.
do you remember? Yeah, right. Do you remember,
Uh-huh.
can you do any of that opening when they go, "1 Adam 12, 1
1
Adam
out of
12?"
12,
Do
1
you
out
remember?
of 12, 211 in progress, 1 out of 12, handle code 3. And it was just like, yeah.
That was stellar. Good job,
Thank you.
man. We both knew that one, but you said it out loud and you did it. Yeah, and I would say they smiled at least, and they were a little more, approachable as characters, and so they were kinda
Mhm.
softening the image of cops with Adam 12. But then, Chips. Now we're trying to make cops kinda cool, right? And
Uh-huh.
it's like, and I hate to say it, and people that love motorcycles are gonna hate me for saying this, but for me, motorcycles have never been a cool thing to me. I know that sounds horrible, and they're probably like, "Well, Jeff, can you even ride a motorcycle? Maybe you're just a dork,
Mhm.
and that's why you don't like motorcycles." Maybe, but
Right.
dudes sitting perfectly upright with perfect
Yeah.
posture, wearing those little boots and those, like, English riding pants, and,
Yeah, they're kinda puffy.
and
Yeah, they're
yeah,
kinda
and
puffy at
and
the hips.
on these motorcycles that aren't really cool motorcycles, they're the
Right.
super beefed up ones that just look
Right.
like,
Mhm.
it should just be a dude with a huge beard, and he's heading to Glamis or something. It just it just was never cool to me, but whatever.
Uh-huh. Right.
But again, these were the guys that would actually go to nightclubs and hang out and have social lives, and Chips was supposed to be this kind of a new version of the cops, yeah?
Yes.
I don't know,
Yeah,
I
trying to make
guess.
it get the cold and because it wasn't Mod Squad, it wasn't Starsky and Hutch, it wasn't
Yeah.
one of those things, and then, yes, it clearly wasn't Adam 12 and it certainly wasn't Dragnet, but you had your partners, and they were out there, and they were, doing their thing, they were different personalities, and yes, against the backdrop of riding motorcycles on the 405.
Without further ado,
Mm.
let's take a look at who we had lined up. And Chris, I think this interview, these questions that we gave him were
Mhm.
fun. And
Yeah.
I was actually really happy to see that this gentleman, this actor, has a good sense of humor, and he's a good guy,
Mhm.
and like I said, with all of the celebrity guests that we've had on the show, it's just fun to see the actual person talking about anything besides the show, because all you and I know about them is just the show. So,
Yes.
guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the first question we asked our buddy from the show, Chips.
Well, hello there, Jeff and Chris. Larry Wilcox here. Gonna answer your questions, see if I can tell a few lies. What's something about filming Chips that would completely ruin the show's illusion for the viewers if they knew it? Well, combination of things. My buddy Ponch learned to be a good actor, and he had a a new technique where he would paste his lines on the rear view mirrors of the motorcycles, and he'd be saying, doing his line as if he was thinking about something, and then look over to the right thinking about something else. He was just reading his lines. So that was kind of funny.
So again, for those in the listening audience, whether you're watching this or just hearing it audio only, this is obviously pre-recorded. We had this interview with Larry a little while ago, and it's interesting to hear him talk about that first thing, right? Which is something strange that happened or something on the show that maybe we don't know about or something unusual. And his answer is basically that, Chris, does this remind you of a different actor? The fact that Eric Estrada had to tape his lines in different parts of the set so that he could read them as he's acting. Does that remind you of anybody else?
I've heard Marlon Brando did the same thing. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Probably the first time anybody ever compared Eric Estrada to Marlon Brando. But hey,
perhaps, perhaps.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, hey.
And then, we did ride the motorcycles. We got pretty cocky and pretty talented, and we were trained by the CHP and, did a lot of training with them. But for close-ups, they put our motorcycles on the trailer so they could record the sound and not be hearing motorcycle noise in the background. So we would ride in our motorcycles, and the teeny boppers would be all excited, and then we'd come back and do the close-ups on the trailer, and they'd be giving us the finger or thumbs down, if you will.
So that's also interesting to hear, right? Again, Larry's talking about the fact that they did learn how to ride a motorcycle, right? And they did even do some little tricks and stunts, my understanding from him. But there's scenes, of course, for those that know post-production, you have to be able to listen to them talking to each other with their little lavalier wireless microphones and the boom mic and all. And you can't do that if you have motorcycle engines on, right? So they would put them on the back, like he said, of a little trailer, a trailer bed. And then, of course, you have the camera right in their face, and they would just pull them on a trailer, right? I guess that's what he's saying, right, Chris? On the freeway. And then that's fine for him and Eric Estrada. But of course, anybody that's a fan of the show that sees these two dweebs, and I mean that politely, by the way. I think that's what Larry is saying. Is that you just look like such an idiot, right? When you're just sitting on a bike pretending. And everyone's just like, hey, fuck you, right? They're just like, boo, Chip sucks,
Again, the internet would have just destroyed them. Right, because it would have been their pictures would have been out. They would have been tweeted out. Here's just here's your chips, your CH. That's pretty funny, and probably just a little bit, maybe a tiny bit emasculating, because they were like, and that's why he's saying, we actually could ride these motorcycles. We learned how to ride these motorcycles. We could do it.
Yeah. But no, he's right. Yeah. No, and I think that's what he's getting at, right? Is like, and nowadays we're completely used to those filming techniques, and nobody would even blink twice. Nobody would think it was a big deal, right? Nobody actually believes that Vin Diesel, jumped his, car off a cliff and landed on the hook of a crane, and then swung around and landed inside of the window of a skyscraper.
I saw that with my own two eyes. So don't ruin that. Come on, that was real. That's okay. But this is funny because I heard an interview with Henry Winkler not too long ago where they asked him about the motorcycle, and he's, Fonzie's motorcycle. He rode it once. He said for like 14 seconds for the opening credits. And that was, he never actually rode again, which is
he was
funny.
Scared to death of it. And I think it rode him would be a better way, the way he tells it.
Easy.
Right. Well,
family show.
So let's take a look at the other question we had asked Larry here. This is so much fun. Yeah.
Was there a guest star on CHiP's that made you think, what in the hell are they doing on this show? Well, no, not really. I mean, there were one or two that had an addiction problem. I won't mention their names, but, they were either high, just shot up on the needle, or another gentleman was a really bad alcoholic. Two gentlemen actually were bad alcoholics. One an old Western star, and one who used to star in his own police series. So, it was hard doing lines with them because they couldn't pronounce the words, and it was pretty weird.
Okay.
He's soaking it in. Chris, you know what Chris is doing? I know what he's doing. Chris is going through his entire catalog of every single Western star and guy that starred in his own cop show, and he's trying to put together who he thinks these people were. Of course, we're never going to figure it out, but we can speculate, I guess.
We can try with the interwebs and go to the CHiP's guest stars. It's just kind of it's not surprising, based on the time period the show is produced. It's a little bit surprising that the way he just kind of casually talks about it. And then I think for me that the heart, it's okay, the addiction stuff or whoever's a drunk. But if you're talking about somebody like using injecting like hardcore drugs, it's like, I'm going, was Janis Joplin on CHiP's? I mean, it's like, that's a little, you know what I mean? That, because those are like,
right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
that is pretty intense. Yeah. Maybe it was just vitamin B, Chris. Maybe we're wrong. Well, by gosh, again, like Chris said, we could go through, Wikipedia or just go through IMDb and check out, every guest star that might have already had their own cop show or been a former Western star. But, hey, look, those are probably the only ones that he knew about. I mean, imagine all the people that came through the damn Love Boat. That was just a festival
going down to Mexico
of people just going down the career toilet, and having all different versions of hell in their personal lives, So
yeah, but you're joking. Yeah. I think with probably 97% certainty, we could probably figure it out. And then maybe it was like tonight's episode, Chasing the Dragon, and then maybe we'd have been able to tell who it was or something like that. I don't think they did that though, because it wasn't a Quinn Martin production. So they didn't do the little titles.
And he said they were having a hard time saying their lines and enunciating. So just look for anyone calling him Pucciarello, right? Or John Blaker.
Jim. Yeah.
Jim Blaker. Yeah.
Good God. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Who knew?
Well, let's go to another question that we asked our buddy here, Larry Wilcox. And again, he was just so very cool to do this interview. So let's listen to the next one here.
But did anybody ever make me reenact my CHiP's character Offset? No, too boring. I always say that the CHiP's character of John Baker was so boring that it was really, really hard for me as an actor, because he was just a straight man for Punch. So I had to constantly try to weave in kind of trust and belief systems and character when there was just nothing there, and to show that he cared about Punch and there was a good relationship and so on. So I think that's, for that kind of character, you probably wouldn't want to reenact him.
So I love that question, right? Because he is just so honest and really self-deprecating, right? Larry Wilcox there is just being brutally honest that he was given scripts, every single episode where John Baker is just the most boring human on the planet. And as an actor, like he said, he's obviously trying to breathe some kind of a life into it. He's trying to slip in nuance, right? And subtlety to try to give John Baker some kind of an arc, well, he's a good guy, but he's got a moral compass, but he's also this. And obviously you could tell that Larry Wilcox is like, dude, what am I supposed to do with this character? What am I supposed to do? I'm just talk about being the Tubbs to his Crockett, right? Poor Tubbs. Poor Tubbs. Maybe. I still keep feel bad about that guy. Poor, what's the guy's name again? See, I can't remember his name.
Philip Michael Thomas. I know you don't even know his name, for Christ's sake.
And he's a good actor. He's a good guy. I don't know why. I can't remember it. But yeah, I think Larry Wilcox was in the same boat. Don't you, kind of?
He had 3 names, and he also had 3 first names. I think it might have been the problem.
Yeah.
But
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
He was all screwed up. This is just kind of sad because yeah, he's out there. He probably at the time probably had a bigger resume than Eric Estrada had when they put him together.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But then
Yeah.
there's always like I think in situations like this, one kind of breaks out more than the other, whether or in a certain situation like when they had Welcome Back Kotter and it was like John Travolta and the rest of the Sweat Hogs, and he like eventually leads the show, and
Yeah.
Eric Estrada
Sure.
sort of becoming this Latin sex symbol kind of guy, even though they tried to portray him as Italian. But I mean, it was
Oh, well,
just
hold on
like
a second there. That's a good point, Chris.
hmm
You were telling me that,
hmm
earlier.
yeah.
Explain to the audience, and
Well,
I feel like an idiot. I never noticed that. So what was going
mhm.
on with Eric Estrada's
Well,
character being
okay.
being
E
Poncherello?
E Eric Estrada very clearly being, Latino and very clearly being essentially, um, I believe he may have been Puerto Rican, and then
Sure.
his
Yeah.
lineage obviously came from, Latin America, South America. I don't know a lot about Eric Estrada per se. Although but again, they they portrayed him as Frank Poncherello. Number 1, what was that, right? How drunk were those writers? Again, I'm pretty sure, and I'm half Italian, and you've met a lot of Italians. Nobody ever had anything close to a name like Poncherello, but they just, I guess, they liked the nickname Ponch, or maybe they were going to call him Poncho, and they decided at the last minute, oh no, we can't make this guy. Let's make him Italian. And so he was the darkest Italian this side of Othello, okay? Because
Yeah.
it was just like but again, at the times, they thought they may be pushing the envelope a little bit, even though his name was
Yeah.
Estrada in real
Right.
life. Let's make him again a really, really, really tan Italian. And
Do,
that
do
was
you,
Punch, you know.
Chris? Do you think there was another version of the show that like Chico and the Man, right? Where it was Baker and Pancho or something like that. Like they were gonna go with, just digging into his Latino roots and just being super honest about it. And it's like, Pancho and the Baker, or something like that. And then they thought somebody actually said, come on, man, that's a bit much. Let's just make him Italian somehow. I don't know how they did that. I never noticed it, by the way. The whole entire time I watched that show, I never made that connection. I don't know why.
It didn't test well, maybe. You're right. Maybe he was Franco Pancho, something
Chris,
Rodriguez or
you mean the
something.
episode where he would drive on in the CHP bike wearing a poncho and a giant sombrero? You don't think that tested well with the focus groups? Okay.
Maybe or tested too well.
No,
And at the same
that
time,
was not cool.
right.
Yeah.
But again, e even looking back, if probably not a nickname anybody would necessarily embrace. Yeah, just call
Yeah.
me Punch, you know? But,
Yeah.
yeah, so John Baker, the character, and Larry Wilcox, the actor, I think kind of yeah, I think they did for what but that always kinda happens, like one just kind of whatever just clicks with the audience, and, but hey, and his character they didn't give him anything to do. So even the
They
writers
really
thought,
didn't. No. Yeah.
"Screw this, but let's get Morgan Fairchild in here, and she could be a special guest star, and she can be like, she's a movie star, and Punch, like, helps her fix a flat on her Rolls Royce." You know what I mean? But that didn't happen to John.
Do I currently own a Mercury LN7 where I set the land speed records at Bonneville Salt Flats? No, thank goodness. I think it was 153 miles per hour, but I might be wrong. Might have been slower. But it was fun, but you don't get any sense of speed in Bonneville because everything, no trees to go by or poles or landmarks, you're just flat. So you guys enjoy. Thanks for asking about this. See you later. Bye.
So, Chris, that was the last
Mhm,
question that I had asked him. And you can tell this is a Jeff question, right, Chris? This doesn't sound very much like a
mhm.
Chris question, right? I asked him to talk a little bit about holding temporarily the land speed record on the Bonneville Salt Flats, right, which is a dry lake bed. And he
Mhm,
had a thing called a Mercury LN7. Now, that thing went up, as you heard him say, up to like 150 some odd, miles per hour. Doesn't sound like much by today's standards. Obviously, they have rocket cars that have gone hundreds of miles an hour on that thing. But I did think it was
mhm.
kind of cool that this guy has done all kinds of like kind of interesting daredevil stuff. in his personal life.
Hmm.
And you just don't think, Chris, of a Mercury going that fast, do you? A Mercury, Chris. Isn't the Mercury the same car company that brought us the Sable? I mean,
And the
you
bob
just don't.
and the bobcat.
And the Bobcat. Yeah, the Bobcat, though.
Love
The
that
Bobcat was
bobcat.
very fast. My mom
Uh,
had a Mercury
okay.
Bobcat, and that thing hauled ass. In fact, I was in the car with her one time when somebody pulled up in a Camaro SS Super Sport and was revving his engine next to my mom. She had a red and white Bobcat, and she
Oh,
actually peeled rubber with me in the car, Chris. But I did have a seatbelt,
nice,
so I don't want to throw my mom under
nice.
the bus there. But we did haul ass,
Thanks, Mrs.
and
Phil.
I can't remember who won. Didn't matter. I thought that was the coolest thing my mom could have ever done. So, well, thank you again, Larry
Sounded
Wilcox.
like
That
it,
was super
Larry.
fun. Yeah, we got a little bit of insight there, and yes, now Chris is going to be scrubbing the internet to figure out who these guys are that were on the show acting up. Chris, I did want to bring up something just very random. I have a brother that lives down in La Mesa. I visit him quite a bit, and just the other day, for those that are kind of from here, I was driving down Fletcher Parkway, not too far away there from my brother's house in La Mesa. And
Did
guess
you
what
have
I
to
drove
cross
by? Yeah, go ahead.
licorice pizza? No,
I,
probably
I
not.
didn't. Nope.
Uh,
Is licorice pizza still around?
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay. I
I
didn't
heard
think
somebody
so.
was bringing it back. Actually, that would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that is
It's
well.
a, it's a, it's a food place, Chris.
Okay,
And I won't make you guess. There's too many of them, but and this is the Beef and Bun,
you
Chris,
drove.
the
I
Beef
was
and
going to
Bun.
say
Yeah.
beef and bun.
Yeah. So again,
The
that doesn't mean
beef
anything to
and
people that didn't grow
bun.
up here in Southern California, but it is still there. The
That
food
is awesome.
is absolutely super solid. And Chris, if you remember, it had the classic 1960s exterior, which is the rocks that were kind of shoved into the cement
Mm-hmm.
and painted different colors. It looks very Flintstone, very Fred Flintstone outside, and
Mm-hmm.
they've kept that same exterior this whole time.
Beef and bun. First of all, the beef and bun reference is awesome. I don't know if you remember, for whatever reason, um, again, when we were 17, 18, Beef and Bun became like a hangout for the kids who thought they were mods. And so they would drive up in their Vespas and sit there in
Nice. Wow.
their trench coats and
Yeah, the
hang
green
out at
trench
Beef
coat.
and Bun.
Yep.
Yes, hang out at Beef and Bun.
And
Um,
Chris, did any of their trench coats have the band name, The Jam, spray painted on the back of
the
those trench coats? Is that
maybe
possible?
the jam,
Did
the
any of them
little
say The Who? The
a little
Who, maybe? Was
bullseye,
that?
little
Yeah, little,
bullseye.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Did
yeah.
they have one, Chris, rear view or side view mirror, or did they have 75? I'm trying to
I think they had
remember.
more than one and probably
Yeah,
more than
that
two.
was the
So
thing to have
yeah,
like 70 or 80 of them on there. Yeah.
right,
Mods. I love that.
right.
Never was
Mm,
never was there a biker gang that inspired less fear than the
then the
mods.
mods.
That's right. Hey, the mods are
Ooh,
here. Let's
ooh
go ahead
no!
and make room. They're actually pretty polite. It's
Oh no, the
just
mods
like,
are here.
oh no.
Don't hurt me, mods. Don't hit me with your skinny tie. Um,
Yeah, the
yeah,
worst they can do is shun you. That's the extent of their
the, they could mock you
yeah.
because you didn't know how to tie a half Windsor knot
Yeah, they could.
or
And
something.
I'm not even sure they would
Um,
mock you. I think they would just give you a disapproving stare. I think that was the weapon of the mods. Yeah,
something
you just
like
didn't
that.
feel included. Yeah, I think that was their.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But it got beef and okay, so you're opening and I don't know if it's a can of worms. You're opening like a big buffet. You're opening the front door to when you talked about beef and bun. For me, like as a kid, going out to dinner was like a once or maybe twice a month kind of thing with my family. We
Hmm.
didn't go out to dinner a
Hmm.
lot. It was like maybe it was based on like I think I swear to God, it was probably like payday, like every other week when my dad got paid. We're going out to dinner,
Right.
but um so but the thing is you had so many choices, and then you had so many options, but then it was literally like, "We're gonna get pizza, so where do we go? Do we go to Shakey's? Do we go to Straw Hat?" Which were
Yeah.
really like, "Yeah, can we go to" that was I think that's a lot of our kids liked because we got to see the black and white movies with Little Rascals and Laurel and
Well,
Hardy and all that crap.
help me out here, Chris, and I think I'm going to be awarding you some points. But when I think of Shakey's and Straw Hat, I feel like both of them had people that were forced to wear, just like Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor,
Mhm.
styrofoam 1930s what would be
Yeah,
straw hats in
straw
real
hats.
life back in the 30s, but in this situation they were usually styrofoam or something, right?
When I think about those, though, maybe I'm jumping and maybe you have some other pizza options because, again, I think those ones were the kids because of that. And there may have been like pinball machines and then eventually, Pac-Man and Space Invaders and everything else. So that was maybe a Saturday afternoon birthday party or after a little league game or something like that. Because my parents were never, and to their credit, it's just like, yeah, that's kind of crap.
This was long before decent ingredients, right? The shift to good pizza happened not too long ago, right? Where Domino's finally came clean
Hmm.
and said, "Hey, everybody," and this is their ad campaign, not me. We get it. We have sucked for a really long time. This has been cardboard shit that you've been eating
Uh-huh.
dipped in tomato paste, and it's really bad. So if you could
Hmm.
please, I beg you, just give us one more chance. You'll notice that it's at least halfway decent pizza, and they did. They did a good job. KFC did the same thing, right? They had this big
Hmm.
shameful series of commercials that were actually really funny where they're like, "Hey
Very
dude, we get it.
conciliatory.
We effed up. That was pretty bad. We went through a rough
Right.
patch, man. And thanks for sticking with us. I think now if you go to our restaurants, you'll see that it is a tiny bit better." And in their case, it was just barely better, just a tiny bit. What are you going to do if you want to open up a pizza place because pizza is so popular and really the quality of pizza is just generally shit across the board? And so all you can really do is come up with gimmicks, right? So you got square pan pizza, where guess what, Chris?
The
It's a
late great
square.
Scoreboard.
Am I blowing your mind? It's not a circle, Chris. It's a square. Did I just freak you out? And then you've got round table pizza. We don't care. We got round table pizza, right? Where the whole theme is, King Arthur's knights kind of a
Knights,
thing, right? This is
knights
like
and
a
damsels.
precursor to medieval times, right? Without the
Hmm.
fun, right? And then
Right.
you've got, again, like we said, the 1930s flapper, 1920s, whatever ragtime kind of
Hmm.
an approach. And then what was another gimmick? Deep dish, right? With Chicago. So the
Hmm.
deep dish pizza it wasn't really pizza. It was just pie, right? It was just super thick and it came in a skillet and it was delicious, but it wasn't pizza. It was
Hmm.
like almost like a cheese dough casserole is what that really was.
The thing that was funny though, again, when you think about the pizza at the time, um, pizza delivery, which we very much take for granted. I mean, nowadays you could get anything delivered, right? Thanks to that old good old pandemic we had a few years ago. But um, Chicago Brothers didn't deliver pizza. SquarePan didn't deliver pizza. I remember very specifically the first time we ordered Domino's, and it was a friend of mine's house, and you know this friend, and his parents were divorced, and we were at his dad's, and we got to order a pizza, and we were so geeked up. Like this was like the pizza's coming to that, and I want to say it was sixth or seventh grade, and and I remember this and this is the part I'm gonna have to mention this to him the next time I see him. It's like this kid comes and it's raining, and this kid comes and he's got this soggy pizza, and he's got his Domino's hat on and whatever. And i- the, the kid's like seven. He tells him it's like again, this is how long ago. $7.16. And so our mutual friend goes. His dad's like, the money's over on the bar because he had a bar among other accoutrements. And so my friend counts out. It's like some singles and a bunch of chains, and he gives him $7.16. He didn't tip him. They gave him nothing left over. It's pouring rain. This kid comes out in the dark, delivers a pizza. Probably took like 2 hours to get there. And I can still hear his dad like yelling because he had no idea. What did he know about? What did we know about tipping somebody? And he stiffed him, and it was pretty funny. It was funny, but
I worked at Domino's, Chris, for about 14 minutes and I went on 3 different runs and then quit that same day because not only did you not have a Thomas guide, but this was when Domino's was big on the 30 minutes fast or
oh
free,
god,
and people were just sitting there with their stopwatches, and you had people that were purposely trying to trick you, like an apartment complex where the door was really over here, but you had to look really carefully, and you can tell that
uh,
these neighbors would get on it with each other like, "Dude, can I go over to your apartment? We'll tell him it's apartment 5, but it's really 6, and then he'll be late, and then we can have free pizza."
mm,
Yeah, and that was me, right? I'm just stressing out like, "Oh my god," and I literally had a Thomas guide, and that's all you could
mm,
do was look at your Thomas guide in your lap as you're driving around in my 1974 Plymouth Valiant wearing this gross uniform that obviously someone else wore before me and didn't bathe in or didn't ever shower, right? And I think, Chris, you remember me back then? I think I weighed 74, maybe 75 pounds.
Dripping
And
wet. Yeah.
I just dripping wet. Yeah. And I just looked like, hello, sir. I was like the classic, oh my God, that was a
And so
nightmare.
did you what happened? Did you get docked? Like if the pizza was free, did you have to pay for it?
I didn't get docked like it came out of my check, but the implication was if you get too many of those marks on your permanent
Uh-huh.
record, then you would either be forced to do something less fun, like clean shit up, or just be let
Uh-huh.
go.
Or
Yeah. So
but since did you even get a paycheck if you only worked there for 3 deliveries?
I did. I mean, I think I might have earned $12 or something,
After
basically,
FICA.
Chris, they lost money on me. I think it
Uh,
was pay Jeff 12 so we can lose $120 in pizza, right? So I think that was a bad deal for Domino's that day.
well,
And this coming off of my run at Captain Kidd's Seafood Galley as not just a good fry cook, but the best fry cook that Captain Kidd's Seafood Galley has ever seen, right?
uh-huh.
So I was just
Well,
out of my element, Chris. This wasn't my sport,
well,
and I
okay.
paid the price, and so did Domino's.
But you more than made up for it with the attention you got from the young ladies but at that place. But that's another story, I
Well,
guess,
yeah,
right?
we've talked about that before, but yeah, that was pretty cool.
Again, bad timing on this because I'm really hungry. It's like I would even eat some Shakey's or some Straw Hat, but
Right.
I just think. But again, you got to wrap it up. It's literally as we went, dovetailed from last episode talking about all these buddies and partners. We had our assumptions and we have our recollections, but to hear here John Baker himself, Larry Wilcox, um, rolling through the freeways on a trailer, and getting mocked for not really driving a motorcycle,
That's
and
right.
being like the second wheel and a very distant second wheel. It's like, give it up, man. Why can't John have something interesting? Maybe John
Yeah.
could be chasing the dragon. Maybe something could have happened like that. But
Yeah.
no, it all
Yeah.
happened to Ponch and Morgan Fairchild. And
Right.
Sergeant Coutreer basically told them what to do, and they were off.
Wow. Very, very, very nice polls.
Yeah, maybe it's time for some crappy pizza. But until next time, Jeff.
Until next time, Chris.
Nasty.